Orders. Okay. Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Woodbury County Board of Adjustment. Today's date is June 6th and the time is 6 o'clock. Tonight's meeting will be audio taped and minutes will be prepared. In respect to all parties, we ask that those present turn off cell phones or set to vibrate. Those in attendance are asked to legibly complete the agenda sheet. I'd like to take a moment to review the procedures we'll follow tonight. First, the board will handle normal housekeeping agenda items. Then for each application on the agenda, we'll open the public hearing on the item. The planning and zoning staff will then present the staff report, including their recommendation. Any letters or other communication received from the public prior to the hearing will be entered into the record. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present his or her case and respond to the report. Next, we'll hear comments from the public. If you'd like to speak either in support or against the application, you need to come to the microphone, state your name, address for the record. All interested parties shall be heard, but repetitious comments avoided. Repetitious or irrelevant comments may be ruled out by the chair. I ask that you remain respectful and courteous with your comments at all times. After all public comments have been heard, the staff and applicant may make a closing statement. The hearing shall then be closed by motion and vote. Therefore, no further comments from the staff, public, or applicant may be heard unless asked for by the board. The board shall then deliberate the case and may ask questions of the applicant, the staff, or any party offering testimony. However, such questions don't reopen the hearing for additional comments from the public unless requested or approved by the board. The board will then formulate and vote on the motion. The motion will typically either grant or deny the requested application. Any board member who has an ex parte communication to place in the record of this meeting needs to do so prior to the beginning of deliberation of the respective agenda item. Any person desiring to appeal the board's decision to a court of record may do so within 30 days after the filing of this decision with the Planning and Zoning Office. Okay, looks like we're all present. Is there any public comment on matters not on the agenda? Here. Next is approval of minutes from the December 6th, 2021 meeting. Chair, Vice Chair.
The motion second, get a vote.
Oh, okay, that's right. Vote on the approval of minutes.
We have a motion on the table, so.
Okay, and we had a second. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed by one. Okay. Been a while.
It has.
And I missed the last one, so it's been long.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you would move to the election of the chair and vice chair. And this has been done in the past either by nomination or by ballot, depending on the will of the board.
Make a nomination. Chairman, Vice Chair.
We need nominations for the chair or the vice chair and the vice chair, right?
Or you can self-select.
Or you could volunteer.
Nice. I'll second that one.
Vote on.
So all in favor? Congratulations. Chair of the Board of Adjustment.
Come up there now.
Tom wants to advocate his throne.
For your last meeting then, huh?
Well, technically, you can switch roles.
You're on the hot seat.
And then we'll.
Oh, you get promoted this early?
Yeah. You're instantly.
Welcome to job 3.
You're officially in charge.
Tom's like, Tom's out. Daniel, you are taking that spot. Don't get too comfortable, everybody else, giving advice. I guess we can- Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, sure about that.
Right.
And you're one vice chair now, so.
Okay, so I guess we are looking for election of the vice chair. Are there any nominations or does anyone want the position?
I'll nominate Pam.
Okay, we have Pam, you've been nominated. We have a second. I guess we'll take a vote. So
Congratulations.
Hi.
okay, you've been elected vice chair. Congratulations, Pam. Motion passes.
I dodged this. That's why I jumped on making the nomination.
Okay, so I guess we are down to the public hearing
Yes.
for the conditional use permit, the temporary borrow pit proposal for the parcel listed here. Do I need to read the parcel number for the record, or are we okay with
I
that?
can read it into the record.
Okay,
Want me to?
do you want to read this or?
Sure.
Okay,
And
all right.
And yes, this agenda item is for the open public hearing for a proposal for a temporary borrow pit to remove earthen material from the property to transfer to Hornick for the completion of the Hornick Flood Improvements Project. This is pertaining to parcel number 864430400005. The request is to remove 63,000 cubic yards of material in a 4.7 acre cut area on the parcel as referenced, which is a 25.8 acre parcel in section 30, township 86 north, range 44 west, which is the Little Sioux Township in the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter. The property is in the agricultural preservation zoning district and is not located in a floodplain. The land use summary table in the Woodbury County zoning ordinance allows for a conditional use permit to be reviewed by the zoning commission and considered by the Board of Adjustment for this location. The property owners are Brandon Burkhart and Samantha Burkhart. The zoning commission at their May 23rd, 2022 meeting has offered the recommendation to the Board of Adjustment for approval of this temporary borrow proposal, offering the following recommended conditions. Any potential soil erosion and damaging water runoff must be mitigated, and all parameters of their stormwater pollution prevention plan, oftentimes reference SWIP plan, must be actively implemented, and all federal, state, and local regulations must be followed, not limited to those by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, the Iowa Department of Transportation, the Natural Resources and Conservation Services, and the Iowa Office of State Archaeologists. The staff also shares the same recommendation, and staff pointed out in the report that we do have a land use goal of the Woodbury County General Plan from 2005, which states that we should have standards and practices for land development to minimize erosion and damaging water runoff, particularly in the fragile soils of the Low Hills area of the county. With this in mind, as well as the consideration of the 6 criteria as presented in this report with 2 considerations. And subject to public testimony at tonight's Board of Adjustment public hearing that might arise any outstanding issues, staff, as mentioned, recommends this proposal. And as for the record, this was published in the Sioux City Journal's legal section on May 19th, 2022. The property owners, 6 of them within 500 feet, have been duly notified with a certified abstractors listing showing staff who the official property owners are. As of the printing of this packet, we have not received any written comments. We did receive a couple phone inquiries from an abutting property owner offering concerns about the permitting process in general and about the time frame of the public notification process, as well as the selection, basically why this location. They were concerned about the impact of the natural landscape of the Los Hills there, and it may be any potential issues of drainage and runoff on the adjacent property. The stakeholders, area organizations, agencies, government officials were notified via the stakeholder comments. We did receive information from the DOT about the relationship there with access to the parcel. Everything looks good from a DOT perspective. The Los Hills National Scenic Byway, of course, wrote a statement into the record where they do not favor this particular project with the impact to the Los Hills area. And then going through each of the respective criteria which is used for the approval. The staff carefully looked at all the balancing of the issues versus landowner rights versus the protection of the Los Hills, et cetera, and laid it out and have come to the conclusion that the balance is possible, and hence the recommendation that has been presented. So with that said, that's what I have.
The concerns of the phone inquiry addressed.
I was able to at least tell them the conditions on the ground, in particular public noticing. The fascinating part about Iowa law and the ordinance is that we have a time frame where we can notice the public, where there's a maximum and a short end. So it's 20 days and 4 days. So we legally can't go beyond the 20 days. We can't go too short on the 4 days. And typically the public hearing for the public is at this meeting. The zoning commission is a review board. They look at the content very carefully and offer you a recommendation based on what they have. Typically it's from the organizations, the stakeholders, et cetera. At this meeting is where the true opportunity for the public is. But with that said, I try to position the letter with all the challenges out there with public notice where they could know a bit about the zoning commission meeting. So it was kind of with having that extra week stuck in with the way May was this month. We had a week in between Board of Adjustment and zoning commission. So they were notified that the zoning commission was reviewing it probably about 4 or so days before. And so trying to keep both boards within that date, but the true notification for the public hearing is for this meeting. And so we've always got to logistically be careful on falling within that realm.
So both of the calls, the concerns were with the public hearing.
Pretty much the notification process. The concern was this is a borrow pit. We should know about it in kind of a long time frame. But in terms of the letter going out and the legal notice that goes into the paper,
The borrow pit was the concern.
the borrow pit was the concern as well from maybe a runoff standpoint too, and those type of aspects.
But those problems were addressed.
They were referenced that in the realm that they have to meet DNR requirements, have the SWIP plan in place, have an MPDES permit. So really the DNR and the state do much of the work for us in terms of meeting those requirements. The developer has to come forward to the county and tell us that they've worked with DNR to present an acceptable plan to move forward with the project. And because the DNR is satisfied, staff will be satisfied.
Was the caller satisfied?
Speaking for the caller, I recommended to the caller to offer a written statement into the record so that we would know a bit more, but I did not receive that,
So they must have been split.
So, yeah, I feel I can't officially say how he feels about it, but I did offer him I did highly recommend that he write a record document into the record.
Yeah, because that would have been their other option, is to come and verbally
Yeah.
present their.
And I was able to speak to them before zoning commission as well and recommended they attend that meeting as well.
Did they come?
Really? So, I think it was the last one, probably. It was-
I
it was, right on 141, roll 141. Oh, you were just, you started.
Oh, yeah, that was a hot one, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this is,
I think since,
Less contentious.
yeah, I guess I remember that one more.
We did one out here by Port Neal not that long ago.
yeah, and that's,
Yeah, there has been a few, I guess.
there were two by Port Neal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the key on borrow pits is they have a lot of hoops to go through externally from the county. So we basically end up collecting information. As I told the applicant, you've got to go to the DNR, you've got to file the SWIP plan. They do the environmental study through Iowa State that looks for like resources or items, burial, those type of aspects.
And so the letter written by the, West Hills group, are they satisfied with
The-
the plan?
I would have to rest on what they wrote.
Okay.
That's their official.
That's all you ever heard.
Right, yeah.
It's a kind of standard response.
I just didn't know if that would continue to be an issue. I mean, if it was, I guess they could have had the opportunity to either provide a written statement additionally or be present tonight, but I was just curious.
I notified them, of course, right away in the process. Los Hills is a significant part of Woodbury County, and so they're likely gonna get notified when a project does fall within that mapping. And of course, that's very consistent in terms of the views in the past, for sure, in terms of protecting the integrity of the hills.
Well, are we at the point where we need to hear any comments from the applicants? You guys have anything to add?
I think you guys covered most of it.
Yeah, a lot of paperwork.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sure.
it wasn't a light application.
No. I'm Brett Johnson. No, like the concern I think from maybe Jeff is the fact that he's working on runoff. And we went through Ron and Tech, they developed our SWIP plan, which is stormwater prevention plan. So we have doubled all of our containments and everything, and we're gonna do everything in our power in order to keep it on our side, and that won't be an issue.
See from the road too much, is it a high part area could take off?
Yep.
Some of that's crossed right now.
Oh, no, it is right now, yeah, it's all, and that's kind of why we chose, I guess, Jeff had asked that. We chose that area because of the fact that it's already being farmed, I guess, at this point. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take all the topsoil off of it. We'll create a dyke all the way around it, basically, that's one of our controls. We'll put silt fence all the way around that, and then we'll take off probably about 15 feet. And in the past, when the highway came through, I can't say for sure, but sure looks like the sheer cut of it was already one of the spots they've used. So kind of one of those deals where he's gonna be able to farm it, it's gonna lessen the steepness of it, and it should hopefully help everything, so.
We'll have that.
We're hoping to have it closed back up by December. And then if we get it done in time, as soon as we got it closed, we're gonna seed it back down and cover ground. We're gonna do a little top back.
Not going into there.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. We gotta work it out for us, I think, so.
As you look up on the zoning timeline, I see your work from 6 P.M. to 7 P.M.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if the typo in there for that. Did you catch that
What's
one?
that?
In the-
Oh, was it both PMs?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Oh, our work
So,
day.
we got an hour with it.
But
I
it-
messed up that one, 7 p.m.
Well, that was, yeah, that wasn't on your agenda. But on our, but it's an opportunity to go to that.
Yeah, we're gonna really try to keep all of our trucks leaving the site in the daytime, like everybody coming and going, keep it in line, now it's just a little safer there. So. I guess that's really all I have, unless you guys have questions.
I don't have any.
I believe we need a motion then to close the public hearing. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
He'd moved.
Oh, motion by Tom. Do we have a second?
Second it.
Second by Pam. So the public hearing is now closed. Oh, we got, okay. Do we need a roll call vote or just a blanket vote?
Yeas or nays, basically, so
All in favor?
all in favor.
Okay,
Aye.
aye.
All opposed.
All opposed? Motion passes, motion carries.
Already committed to that one.
So the public hearing is now closed.
Used to be a little bit of a rebel rouser, huh? I like it.
Again, said that the state sets everything up,
Mm-hmm.
all the hoops have jumped through.
Yeah.
I believe zoning made one recommendation in there for traffic.
Yeah, our,
And Kelly put something in there to the effect that, they'll address it when they see it being a problem.
yeah, our recommendation was basically just kind of a blanket recommendation that they all follow what they're supposed to follow anyway. As part of the resolution that we would recommend.
You had a recommended motion to.
Yes.
Are we ready to suggest a vote and a motion?
Not a discussion.
No?
But make the motion to, approve the conditional use permit as stated. in the-
As proposed with,
Proposed.
with the same recommendations that zoning
Yeah.
commission. Okay.
I was just looking for it.
So we have a motion by Bob to approve the temporary borrow pit, including the conditions as proposed, and a second by Ashley. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
Awesome, thank you guys.
These two people.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate it.
All right,
Next item.
okay.
Take care, guys.
Yep, have a good one. Now I believe we are down to the rules of procedure for the Board of Adjustment adoption.
Yes, and if I may, so we haven't met in quite some time, quite obviously, and a lot happened with the kind of the changes to the ordinance duties, the handouts that were given to you, the floodplain ordinance, and back in December, we had talked about the rules of procedure. These rules of procedure were officially approved by the Board of Supervisors on February 8th. And basically, these are kind of the bylaws or the document that would function as kind of the basis for the board. And so really, all the action that we have to do tonight is, since the Board of Supervisors approved it, we bring it to the Board of Adjustment for you to adopt it. And so it would be something to consider, maybe a motion to adopt these as your official rules of procedure as approved by the supervisors.
Okay, so
That's the whole pack.
It's, yeah, it's on pages within. your-
71.
73, 74,
Mhm. Yeah, it begins on 71 and it ends on 74, where basically if adopted tonight, the chair would sign it and I would attest, and then it would become your bylaws or your rules of procedure.
Did anybody notice any discrepancies?
I read through it all. I didn't see anything that I thought.
It almost looks like it's cookie cutter.
It was, as David had mentioned back in December, this was adapted highly from what the supervisors themselves use.
Okay.
And the one thing I would mention is we left a block in there for the date supervisor, so the one that your chair would sign would be written in here that the supervisors approved it on February 8th.
Oh, okay.
I make a motion, we accept the rules and procedures as presented, pages 71 through 74.
I second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Bob and a second by Pam to adopt the rules of procedure for the Board of Adjustment. Let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. The motion passes.
Passes. Mr. Chair, if you want to sign right here, then I'll attest.
Right here.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda. I believe it's going to be the discussion information on solar energy, residential and commercial.
Yes, back in December, David had touched on the concept of some type of solar ordinance, and simply for this time around, I provided in your packet a couple examples that are out there that show some language. The last two zoning commission meetings, I did present the zoning commission with some aspects of what a possible solar ordinance could look like, and and the way the ordinance is written, they and the supervisors are in charge of kind of leading the mission forward in terms of adopting something, and they're just kind of in a preliminary stage of doing homework and looking at things, but I wanted to share with you what some of those ordinances look like, kind of based on what David had mentioned back in December. But what we have to look at is possible consideration of what a consumer residential solar, if you put some panels on your house, versus a large utility scale, if a utility company were to put up a park, and how we would, as a future county in the future, how we would want to handle the permitting. We all know a few years back, I think it was a couple of years ago, this board looked at the Mid-American project down south of here, and it was done by conditional use permit. Conditional use permit is the infrastructure we have in place already for the board, and the board did a good job back then in terms of laying out conditions and expectations. But what we did find out is it was on a hard surface down there. It's actually down by Port Neal Road where they put the new one in that went through this board. And this board was able to condition it and make sure that it meets the setbacks and some basic things there. But if we run into a scenario where we're putting these out maybe on a gravel road, we would probably want to look at more details with the county engineer on road use agreements and things like that to protect the road system. So these projects can really grow larger in a sense, especially in this kind of renewable energy world that we're looking at in the future. So I think David touched on it back in December, that there may be a need at some point to look at offering some extra language in there, like we have for telecommunication towers, just as some sort of guide to help the boards look at the consideration. We simply have a kind of a boilerplate, the way you looked at the borrow pit tonight, you use that same type of terminology, same type of language to see how it fits with the neighborhood, how it fits with the zoning district, is it approved there? So those are kind of some of the things we're at least sorting out. The other big thing is the residential. The city of Sioux City treats solar panels on a home or in a yard as a simple accessory structure permitted use. So if you have a house in Sioux City and you want to put one up, you simply have to go through, make sure you're good with the utility companies, make sure you present a site plan that it's appropriately positioned on the property, and you'll likely get your building permit. In Woodbury County, the way the ordinance is written is you have to go through the same conditional use process. And you might recall we did one that last December in the last meeting for the gentleman that put some on his roof. And he went through the conditional use process through us that way. But if he were inside of Sioux City, he would have basically been able to get his permit and move forward. And so that's the question that we're posing to the zoning commission as well as the supervisors, in the sense that do we want to be more, have it just be a building permit, or do we want to just continue with that?
Residential should be as commercial. Really, I mean, because they are the same. With this at the state level, if there is any, they put in solar farm, lack of whatever, do they have carte blanche like the cell towers do? Cell towers, there's no reason we look at those because they're if they apply, they're going to get it.
Right.
At this,
Kind of a slap in the face, really.
Here, look at this, but yeah.
yeah, kind of at this point, it's a different group. The telecommunication tower policy comes out of Washington, very specific to what we can't as a local entity get involved in. We can't, they're getting specific, we can't question signals, effects, those type of things there. They're not even a part of it. As for the solar, I don't see right now heavy legislation that has, restrictions in terms of what we can and cannot ask. But we may want to keep our eye open as renewable energy policies are going through Washington at different points. Different legislation does pop up, and we find out eventually what the federal impact is on the local. So it's kind of a wait and see scenario, but there are kind of best use practices, documents that are available that we can look at, rural affairs documents that basically state what is your box, what is your realm that you can work in from a permitting aspect. But right now, jurisdictions, I think like Lynn County and Louisa County, one of them that was presented in the packet, lay out kind of the double approach on, of course, you want them to be safe, you want them to be positioned, you can look at maybe certain heights, how high do you want them to have we talked about glare. I remember glare came up in the Mid-American one, but what color are they? Would they have any impact down there? We asked the FAA if there would be any, problems with landing on the flight path, things of this. So there's lots of considerations, but when we have it right now as an open conditional use permit, it's basically the board kind of looking at what the conditions, the criteria are, coming up with ones where you identify maybe some areas that maybe property owners might be adversely impacted. So how are you going to mitigate that?
The potential of adopting something similar to one of these two review of conditional use process.
Likely no, depending on how you write it. It would be kind of where you run it to the zoning commission for review, you bring it to this board here. And the kind of the confusing part is when we went through the wind ordinance last year, that was approached as a standalone ordinance by home rule that made it a board of supervisors decision based on kind of the significant impact of those towers, where they basically took the authority under that type of an ordinance. Again, going back to the roads, that was very important to the county engineer. Under the wind, that the roads would be protected, because these big trucks come in, they haul them in, and there's got to be something there that they replace it back where the way they found it. And that's really key there. So there's lots of different reasons, and so we're kind of taking a wait and see approach. And I'll update more. You probably know him by now, David has left the position as director, so we're kind of feeling out things with the department, et cetera, right now. So we're kind of taking a wait and see approach when it comes to some of these ordinances and these major changes.
When it comes to the point where this is getting a little bit more refined. If you can bring up the consideration of how they expire. And the solar farm's gone, there's a lot of concrete piers and stuff in there.
Yeah.
And sometimes those panels and stuff are leased, that there's some type of language that deals with the removal of.
And that would be one of the reasons to have an ordinance, to have that language in there so that there's enough teeth where the board can point to the ordinance and say, you have to have this removed by this amount of time. Or
Decommissioning.
Decommissioning
Yes.
plan, yes. Absolutely. So that's just kind of the general briefing on it. It's just kind of in the works that it's being discussed, and we're kind of polling people and asking folks how they feel specifically about the residential ones, because there is infrastructure. If somebody came in tomorrow for a solar, we do at least have some infrastructure to run a permit through if they're in the industrial zoning district. That's the key thing too. The question is, where do we want these in the county? Right now, pretty much it's general industrial. If somebody were to ask for a one out in the ag land, basically, they would have to go through a rezone. But then the catch-22 on a rezone is spot rezones are not looked on well, as you've probably experienced.
I would get into lengthening the conversation out, but with Monona County REC put up that farm, it's right off the median off ramp. Digging or from Dale or down that way.
Oh,
And that's state ground, but the county have any input on something like that? If say that was to be approached by somebody?
On state ground versus,
Yeah, if it's on state ground, does county have any authority?
that actually may very well be a question that we'd have to run through the county attorney. The closest I experienced that is with the new Simcoe site, just right out there on Highway 20. It was annexed in, and so it was in the county, and so they pursued an annex,
I was wondering how that all got by, I didn't see anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's safe.
And so I'll briefly give you some background in order to kind of respond to that. And basically, the state did approach us first, and they looked at it and said, okay, you're going to have to do a rezone. You're gonna have to rezone that to switch it over. And then you're also gonna have to do a conditional use permit. And so the permits really piled up. And Dakin Schultz over with the DOT and ended up contacting the city and looked at, because they were gonna run water over and all those things anyway that have a part to do with annexation. And so they found that the path that was more viable for them was to pursue the annexation.
It worked better for the county too, because they weren't going to get any tax base. And really, it's kind of nice to get that out on I suppose.
Yeah, it's been state land and state control, but they were just really wanting to move for it. And so my understanding is that the state in themselves had their own kind of permitting criteria, because after it was annexed, the contractors contacted me, do we need a permit from you? And I said, no, then we sent it off to the city, and the city wasn't even permitting it. So there's gotta be at least some criteria that they were doing it as state ground or state property. But I will actually have to look into that a bit more when the state actually owns their own, and they own their own right of way, because they do work within their own right of way, pretty much the way they see fit. And so do we have any reach, or do we have any grip? And so, and when you look at our zoning map too, we don't put a zoning district where the interstate is. So the corridor is sort of speaks for itself.
So they did a good job of down there in West Good. It seemed problem with it, but it's always kind of curiosity how that goes. Sure, that could be hard.
Well, I guess moving on, do we have any public comment on matters not on the agenda? Doesn't appear that we do.
For the record, there's no public online.
Okay, no one on the phone either, all right. Do we have any board member comments or inquiries? Guess we had our big election, so
Yeah.
kind of a surprise today.
Yeah.
I guess, are we down to the staff update or?
It's been a long time since we've met, and I can officially tell you, our director, David, did move on to a different career opportunity. He's the executive director with the Ponca Tribe now. And so at this point in time, we've just been kind of, we haven't received any official update on how they're gonna approach the zoning of the department, per se. So we're just kind of working with everybody and continuing on in our roles as we're doing it. And seeing how things kind of play out.
Enough time at the job now.
Are you waiting for that nomination, Dan?
I'm just staying the course, doing the job.
Nice political non-answer.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I'll call it like I see it.
I guess with that,
Anything else, Dan?
yes.
With that said, I don't see anything really on the agenda yet for next month. Just for some background, usually the first of the month is what triggers an agenda item. And so I'm not looking at July at this point, but it is still possible. Something could pop up at this point, maybe if there was a variance of some sort, but we don't have anything in the agenda at this point. So.
Well, like I say, it's a good zoning plan that avoids meetings. Everything's addressed in the book.
Smooth. I guess, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second it.
We have a motion to adjourn by Bob, a second by Ashley, meeting adjourned. Or do we have to vote on that? We have to vote on that? I'll get this down one of these times. here. All right, so we have a motion.
First half
My
of
first
the-
meeting, okay. Yeah, I do, don't I? So we have a motion and a motion to adjourn and a second by Ashley. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, meeting adjourned.